Larry. Hi.
Hi.
Today, I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Are you?
I am, because what we're going to discuss today is I'm a process guy. I'm a systems guy. But there is a huge level of this experience of coaching and being a professional and being a trainer that is the soft skills. It's the learning who the person is, how they interact, and how you can best support them.
I'm laughing right now because this seems like a very drawn out way for you to say, and you are not a systems guy.
Accurate.
That's what I saw wanting to wash over.
Yeah, love that.
Anyway.
So we're going to talk about emotional intelligence.
All right.
And this is something that I believe that you've done a tremendous amount of work on to be able to identify so that you can better help yourself, better help your clients.
I would agree.
So what is emotional intelligence?
Oh, man. Well, I've never really been asked to define it before. And I'll come up with the best working definition that I can. I think the best way that I can describe it is by trying to describe what I see myself doing regularly.
Okay.
In ways that people have reported as extremely helpful. I am keenly aware and intensely observant of what people's situations are doing to them or for them. And so when I pay attention to the factors in people's lives and how they're behaving and how they're talking about it and what's influencing them and how they are moving and speaking and what their body language and their tone is sharing with me, I'm very, very observant to how someone's feelings are evolving on a second-by-second basis. And I keep a ledger of that in my head around how that tracks from moment to moment to day to week to week to month to year to year. And so I have pretty robust profiles of people's emotional realities as it interplays with the things that are going on a daily basis. With that information, knowing that humans make largely emotional decisions most of the time, I understand how people's decisions are being influenced. I understand what is likely going to influence their decisions. And so I can speak to them in a way that gets to the root of what is going to motivate behavior change. That's what I see as emotional intelligence. It allows me to, and it allows anyone practicing it, to actually help people change in a way that becomes intrinsically motivated for the individual. When you can understand and speak to the emotional factors of their decision making.
Better helps you guide them, better helps you coach them.
Not even them. Totally unfair advantage. Totally unfair advantage. And I think that in large part, this is what has allowed, there's nothing braggadocious about this. The only clients that I've stopped working with in the last 7 years, have been ones that I've let go. Or ones that have moved across the country. Go ahead.
Was that in piece because you felt like they weren't ready to actually do the thing and make the change?
I actually don't know that it's relevant why I let them go.
Okay.
What I'm trying to share here is that it's really good for retention.
Sure.
And so when you think about what it is that keeps someone around, it's not just the programming.
No.
They can get the program in a lot of places. I get frustrated when clients in the past have said, I don't know how to when people ask me what I do with you, I don't know how to describe it, but you're just more than a personal trainer. And I don't know how to say it. And I cringe when some of them say life coach. And I'm like, oh God, no, please don't say that anymore.
Sure.
But they're trying to approximate this thing where they understand that Larry understands the totality of me. And there isn't anyone else that does that. And that's really helpful. And so I see that as what emotional intelligence will serve. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The other key piece here is it is extremely difficult to make me uncomfortable. It's very difficult to make me uncomfortable. I don't mean physically. You put me in a Kimura I'm going to tap, right? It's very difficult to make me psychologically or emotionally uncomfortable. And a large part of the reason that it's so difficult to do it is I have taken myself there pretty relentlessly for half of my life now. The second half of my life has been intentional and relentless exploration of the darkest, scariest corners of my psyche. I take myself there and I face the uncomfortable shit all of the time. All of the time. I address it head on. I move into it. I move through it, and I do what's required of me to dissolve it so that it's not dark and scary anymore and that I'm free of it. Having spent the better part of 17 years doing that, it's very easy for me to very comfortably and in a very grounded way sit with other people's discomfort. People's discomfort doesn't make me uneasy. People's discomfort doesn't scare me. People's discomfort doesn't repel me. It actually makes me more and more calm the more and more uncomfortable and panicked people around me get. So if there were a rule here for you to be emotionally successful and emotionally and successful with clients at being emotionally intelligent and effective, your limit in your efficacy as a coach is going to be in how grounded you can be in the face of someone else's discomfort. Period. So if you struggle, if there are things in your life that you are avoiding, if there are aspects of your psyche that you are afraid of, if there are things that you don't like to talk about, if there are things that make you uneasy, you have two choices. Well, you have one choice between two options. Option number one is you continue to do that and you have a low ceiling. Option number two is you do whatever you need to face those and process those things and you have no ceiling. So
that becomes the foundation.
That's the foundation. That is
step one. Do this.
That is the bedrock of any tactics or tips that you will ever learn. It's the soil. It's the earth. Nothing grows if you don't have that. Go ahead.
What we're going to discuss after this.
These are the seeds that you're planting. If that soil doesn't exist, seeds are going to be seeds.
Got it. So if you haven't done that work, stop listening now. Make that the priority.
Correct. You could finish listening, but don't do anything until you do that first.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Good.
So you've come up with these 5 practical applications for this. We understand what it is. We understand why it's important. And you've got some good examples for each one of these. I want to dive into this. So the first one that you've shared is this empathetic active listening. What is that?
Yeah. So when you're talking to someone and it, like, by the time you finished your sentence, they've already started to say the thing that you can tell they just wanted to say. That's the opposite of this. Empathetic active listening is putting aside whatever your goals or your intentions and your notions might be to be 100% present to what the person is saying right now, what that means to them and why they're sharing it. That's empathetic listening. Active listening is making sure that you are listening first with the intent to understand, not with the intent to share something.
Hearing versus being heard.
Correct. Being heard is not the goal in active empathetic listening. Right. Hearing and understanding and making sure you understand is the goal of empathetic active listening.
Reflecting is one of the first keys in this. What does that mean?
Yeah. So a simple example of this might be, okay, so it sounds like first and foremost, this is something that you've been struggling with for the better part of 3 years. And despite the things you've already tried to do to change it, you haven't really found anything that's worked. And that's been frustrating overall. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's an example of a clear and simple reflective question. Anyone who hasn't heard the conversation I was just in can tell you what this person's chief complaint is because of how I reflected back what they shared and clarified my understanding.
Yeah. Lets them know that you've heard and you're asking for clarity.
That's the important part.
That's
the important part. I'll give you an example. I was on an ethical sales lab with a student in ALP yesterday, and there's a highly intelligent and articulate, passionate, caring woman that was in the lab. And we were doing some role play, and she said, I understand your point of view. And I paused her and I said, what could you ask me, or what could you say right now instead of that would let me actually know that you understand my point of view, instead of me just taking your word for it that I do? And the reframe is, I can hear why this amount of money would concern you. It's more than you've spent on anything in a while. Well, now I know you understand my point of view.
Yeah.
Instead of you just saying, I understand your point of view. Well, how do I know that? That's the difference.
Yeah. The next one is acknowledging the emotion.
I think that this is something that coaches very often want to avoid. And it's an egregious error. And this goes back to the bedrock. If you're uncomfortable with their emotions, you can't help them. You're going to fail them. Don't start. So acknowledging someone's emotions is much more than you starting to get squeamish when people are sharing that they're uncomfortable and trying to get away from that and getting to the next thing that you feel comfortable talking about, which is their programming principles. You saying, you seem like this is really affecting you. That's a calm, grounded thing that someone can trust. They feel safe with you. That's the difference.
Yeah. Open-ended questions. What's the difference between a closed-ended and an open-ended question?
A closed-ended question is something that can be answered in yes or no. A closed-ended question is something like, are you ready for this? Did you like that? Did that hurt? Those are closed-ended questions. Yes or no. Open-ended questions are things that can't be answered that simply and actually require the divulgence of more information. Open-ended questions, therefore, would start with things like what, where, how, when, why. What's the reason that you decided to have this call today? Where did this all start? How have you found that you've been best able to help yourself in situations like this in the past? Those are examples of open-ended questions.
And what that allows you to gain is that better information and clarity.
Correct. More information is only going to help you. If you end up with a big pile of information, you only end up using 5% of it. Great. The fact that you got all of it means that you increased the likelihood that you found the 5% that was relevant for you to use. When people are reluctant to share, first of all, it means that they're hiding something from you. And the reason that they're hiding something from you is because they don't trust you. So if they're hiding something from you, you're not going to get the important thing. And the important thing is actually what you need to help them change.
We had an example of this in a consultation yesterday, which I enjoyed. We went through, had the whole thing, and at the end we were digging a little bit on why this was important. And the guy goes, I'm going to share something personal with you. And I'm like, we're at the gold now.
Yep.
And he shared about how he had other men in his life who were a similar age, and they were in this state of dysfunction and disrepair, and it really scared him. He lost his father when he was 5.
Beautiful. That's the stuff right there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, whatever you did to garner that good work.
Thanks. Regulating emotions in high pressure situations. This is the second of the 5 practical applications.
Yep.
Tell me about this.
Well, this might be one of the key ingredients to that soil, to that bedrock that we were talking about. If you get rattled in the pressure of an emotionally charged situation or potential conflict, you got nothing. You're done. It's over. Human beings and most, if not all, social animals are impossibly keenly cued in to tiny, tiny changes in how others around us are doing. There are people that struggle with this, like aspects of serious spectrum autism, for example. There's a disability in their ability to. There's a dysfunction in their ability to either read or the decision to choose it. That's not what we're talking about. For most otherwise healthy people, we are keenly cued in to changes in how people around us feel and how we're behaving. And if you get rattled when someone shares something uncomfortable or you're in a situation of high pressure, your client knows in a fraction of a second, and they've decided without deciding. They're unconscious. Their nervous system is decided for them. I mean, like their spinal cord right? They're not even thinking about it. It's decided for them, this is not someone that I can rely on as safe when things get hairy. And that loses trust. And that is what's going to cause them to move away from you and not defer to you as a leader. And you want customers to see you as a leader.
Yeah. How could somebody practice this then? And because your body's going to betray you in these situations if you don't have the practice, if you don't have the reps, if you don't have that skill developed, right? First off, what would an example of that look like, of you getting squeamish? How could somebody start to see that? Is it a body language thing?
Yeah. Your face is going to reveal it. Twitches are going to reveal it. What do we call it? Like fidgeting is going to reveal it. Your facial expression is going to reveal it. Your words are going to reveal it. Some even might argue, depending on how close you are, like the way that you smell from your hormonal shifts towards cortisol might reveal it on a subconscious level. I'm not getting that in the weeds about it, but you can't hide it. You can recruit all of your energy to fake it, and you might squeeze by a little bit, but it's on some level, it's perceptible no matter what.
So the 3 examples you have for this start with remaining supportive when the client becomes critical.
Yeah, so an example of this might be a client just saying, God, I suck at this. I'm just so pissed at myself. Or I just feel like I'm totally backsliding here. And you can just see they're frustrated and they're just beating themselves up. This is a place they're in distress right now, and they really feel like crap about themselves. That's an example of what I think it might sound like, or what it could sound like.
How could you intervene there without seeming like you're brushing that off? Because I can see some people defaulting to, you're actually doing a really good job. It's fine. You keep it up.
It's the wrong way to go. It's the wrong way to go. You can lead them to that at the end, but they're not thinking rationally right now. You're not going to reason with them right now. They're in an emotional whirlpool right now. And so the first thing to do is acknowledge that with them. Okay, first of all, it seems like you're really beating yourself up about this right now. You really feel like you're backsliding intensely right now, huh? That's how we start this. It can lead to, can I share with you why you're actually doing much better than you think you are? I think I see something that you might not see. And I want to make sure you understand why it's such an important observation that we're making about it. You can end up there. But to your point, man, it's not, no, you're doing great.
Right. You're having a logical conversation in an emotional state.
And you can, oh man, I've been in the consultation with someone where I said, something just occurred to me, and I feel like I'm trying to apply logic to an emotional situation. Are you really afraid about this right now? And then we got to a productive conversation.
So call it out first.
Call it out, man.
Well, you had already started to do this. The second guiding them through that overwhelm.
Yep.
What would that look like, sound like?
Yeah. So if someone's overwhelmed, the first, and I learned this from Jefferson Fisher on the Diary of a CEO podcast.
So good.
He describes that your first word and the next response should just be a breath. It's been so helpful. So if you're in a position where you see that a situation is really charged, the first thing that you can do is just take a quality breath that is going to relax you. And that he didn't go on to say this directly, but I know this from my own experience, that breath is going to relax the other person a little bit too. So I don't know. I know that you've had 2 dogs. Your favorite guy passed away a year ago or so, but I don't know if you've ever seen this. Have you ever seen that either you, your dog, or your person next to you, when you take that physiological sigh, like a deep exhale, that they'll do it shortly after you?
No, I haven't paid attention to that.
Pay attention to that. See if your dog does it, and see if even one of your friends or your wife does it. What I'll notice is that if me and my dog are just sitting around, and I give myself a big, he'll do it like 3 seconds later.
That's cool.
And what's happening is that my relaxation is relaxing him. And the first thing that breath is going to do is relax your client a little bit too. And what they're going to see is, okay, my coach is relaxed, is emotionally regulated, is grounded right now. He's safe. I'm a little bit more safe than I thought I was right now with all of this emotion that's going on. And starting with that breath, like Jefferson Fisher was pointing out, is going to do a few things. Besides the relaxing you like I think it does. One, it's going to show, two, it's going to show that you're actually being thoughtful and present to what you're about to say.
Mm-hmm.
And you doing that is going to let the client understand that, all right, I'm actually being paid attention to. He feels safe about what he sees in me. That's vulnerable and reassuring. Starting there, whatever you say next is going to be better.
Rather than as soon as the sentence is over, jumping into the next thing that you wanted to say.
100%. So do you think this is going to go okay? Yeah, it's going to be amazing. You're not listening. You care more about what you want to tell me than what I'm saying. So do you think this is going to go okay? I do. I do think this is going to go okay. That feels different.
It gives them space too, because often what I've noticed in those, when I'm trying to rush the response, even if thoughtful or not, they might still have something else to say.
Yep.
They're not actually done. They're trying to process, figure out what the next thing is. And by taking that breath, I've had so many scenarios where they just start on the next whatever thread is to finish that thought.
That's right.
And I'm like, well, I'm really glad that I took a moment to let you finish that thought.
It's good, man. The other thing that comes to mind to just finish this part of guiding people through the overwhelm is helping break things down into what's in your control and you could actually influence right now. Because that control issues aside, and advocating for people feeling like they have a sense of control and existential, whether we even exist or not, notwithstanding, if you connect, might be a place where I might pull someone over to a whiteboard and I might say, there's a lot going on right now. Come over here. And I will I'll just start writing words on the board that I've heard them say. I might start writing things like diet, contractors working on the house, current work project, sleep, cat surgery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I might be like, what else is swirling around? I might put 10 or 15 more things on the board. And I might say, this is a lot. And I'll just look at them. And they'll say it is a lot. And I'll say, which one of these feel the heaviest? And they'll tell me the one or the two or the three. And then I'll say, okay, is there anything that we can actually do to reduce how much this affects you? And they might think about it for a little bit. And they might say like, yeah, just like get out of the house when the contractor's there. Okay. Is that something that actually feels feasible, or are you locked in the house when they're there? No, I can do it. And then I might say, okay, where are the places that you can see yourself actually going? Is it Starbucks? Is it a what? Like what's the kind of place where you can see yourself actually wanting to be, if not at home? Because I actually want you to identify a place that you would actually want to be, ideally. That would be at least a little bit less stressful than home. Guiding people like this actually gets them to doing things that but by the time the conversation's over, the stress is going to be reduced. Because they're going to realize, okay, I'm not this paralyzed slave to this stressor.
Mm-hmm. That's a really great example of taking them through two things. One, you take them through circles of control without doing a whiteboard talk on the circles of control. And it allows them to go through the entire process of having the emotional response, down regulating from that so that they can come to the logical solution to the problem.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Number 3 on our 5 practical applications is building and modeling self-awareness. What does that mean?
Well, I think that oftentimes it is easy to feel like life is happening to you and to defer blame in the position of victimhood. And we've talked previously about the victim mindset. Self-awareness is, how many places don't say it starts with awareness, right? Self-awareness is arguably the most important tool for any change that you think is important or relevant. And so to us, I see self-awareness as being the consistent responsibility to reflect on what's my participation in this? How have I affected things in ways that I intended? How have I affected things in ways that I have not intended? Do I agree with what my contribution has been here? Was it favorable? If it wasn't, what can I be doing differently? It's simple and it's scary and it's a really responsible position, which I think is what scares people. but that's also where the power is. There is no responsibility without power, and there's no power without responsibility, right? So if we can start there, we have the ability to start affecting change in a really important way for ourselves and other people around us. And since self-awareness and responsibility is so intimidating to so many people, you modeling how good it can look and feel to be self-aware could be one of the greatest ways that you help them. Because if you can be someone that they're inspired to be more like, and you can do that in part through modeling self-awareness, they're going to want to adopt the skill of self-awareness.
It ties really well into, you already mentioned the victim mentality, creator mentality. For people who feel like that's a little too like woo-woo and ethereal, you can look, it's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. The fixed mindset or the victim mentality says that life happens to me. The growth mindset or the creator mentality says that life happens for me. So fundamentally, how do you view this existence? Is it something that happens to you or something that happens for you?
What a difference.
With this self-awareness, encouraging reflection. We talked about reflecting a little bit and asking questions, but how do you encourage reflection with an individual?
Yeah, there's a difference between reflective listening and self-reflection, right? Encouraging self-reflection. The reflective listening we were talking about is us reflecting on what they share. Encouraging self-reflection is encouraging and supporting them in their own reflection of what they shared. So when, for example, someone shares something like, do you notice that you're being hard on yourself, or is that just me? Boom, right there. Yeah, I guess I am. I'm just frustrated about this. That's fair. I can appreciate why you're frustrated about this. Why do you think that you end up being so hard on yourself about this? Where do you think the frustration comes from? That's asking them questions that force is a weird word there, that create opportunity for them to start to reflect on, well, what's underneath that? What's underneath that? Where'd that come from? What's behind that? That's what I mean there.
Yeah. The next step is sharing something personal.
This is a great example of what we mean by modeling self-awareness, so that they can see that you, as someone that they're inspired to learn from and be more like, have gotten that way in part through self-awareness. So it's something that they would do well to adopt. This might be something like, look, I noticed that for a long time, I was finding reasons that other people were the problem. I spent a long time pointing out all the ways that certain people in my life were doing things that were creating a problem. And irrespective of their behavior, once I realized that how I respond to the situation, irrespective of what they do, how I respond to the situation will change everything about how I feel and how they feel, and maybe even start changing behavior, everything changed for me. And at that point, I stopped blaming other people and I started leading with compassion for why they were in the first place. And that started to really help me understand that all of their behavior actually makes sense. I don't like it all the time, but it makes sense and I understand how they got there, and I'm sympathetic to that. Now, what can I be doing to make this a little bit better for me and maybe even for them right now? That allowed everything to change about how I feel about life in general.
One of the fundamental frames that I was exposed to when I was younger that was very helpful for me was that everyone is just doing the best they can with the information that they have to be happy.
It's true. I mean, I agree with it. I don't know if it's true. I agree with that. I think that we all have a certain amount of tools. We all have a certain amount of skills. We have a certain amount of knowledge, and we have different capacities. And I don't know that everyone's doing what we think they ought to all the time. But I really believe that everyone is trying to get a sense of well-being, and they're putting together the hodgepodge of their experience in the best application possible to feel a little bit better, consciously or unconsciously, right now.
How does this sharing personal meld with your ethos around when you're training a client or you're having sessions? It should be about them.
Well, I don't speak about myself unless asked to, in which case I'll promptly turn it back to them, or unless I think that a relevant example in my own life will help them leverage my story to create more of what they want in their own. So, for example, if I know that someone consistently has a certain kind of conflict with their partner, I might share, no, that resonates. My wife and I used to struggle with that intensely. One of the things that we found was that if we XYZ, it really helps us ABC in a way that feels much better for both of us. It might be something that could work for you guys if you want to consider that.
How good does it feel to say wife?
I say it as often as I possibly can. I love calling Rhiannon my wife. I love it. I was texting someone the other day who knows exactly who my wife is, and I could have just said her name, which would have been the normal thing to do because they're friends. But instead of saying her name, I said, I'll call you back. I'm on the phone with my wife. And they laughed at that. And I thought it was great.
What's the third principle here? What's the third example that you have here?
The third example of modeling
self-awareness.
Helping them actually identify aspects of themselves that they should be leaning on and leveraging. So the things that they're actually good at. And you know when you're in a position where you feel like you're living in a strength, you're confident about what's in front of you. I got this kind of feeling. Like, okay, I can, easy. I know what to do here. Putting them in that position, helping them identify what some of those things are and how they can take up residence there.
That's so important in my opinion, because a lot of times when we're working with clients, we're focused on the gap, the deficiency. We're focused on where they're at versus where they want to be. And acknowledging that, look, you're already crushing this thing can be just such a helpful mindset for them to be in. Here's the strength that you already have that you're demonstrating. Here's how you show up in the way that you've told me that you want to show up. That's exceptional. Lean more into that. How do I facilitate? How can I help you do that more often, more frequently?
Yeah. Yeah. I often want to get them to, one of the things that I like to do is instead of selling someone that they can or that they are, I like to get them to sell me on it. So a way that I might do that is instead of saying like, you're really good at XYZ. Look at this progress that you're making, which I think is valuable. It might be something along the lines of when you changed your eating habits and you just absolutely knocked your dinner times out of the park. What was it that got you to do that? And now they're in a position where they're actually needing to seek out and identify decisions that they made and put in energy for to create a better situation. So what was it? You just decided one day this was going to change? Like, yeah, look, I reflected on the fact that this, that, and the other thing, and I couldn't deal with that anymore. And I needed to change it. And that was it? Yeah, more or less. I just flipped it. When it occurred to me, I flipped the switch and that was it. Okay. Now they're in a position of power. Now they're in a position of confidence. And I get them to explain why.
Yeah. It's the asking versus telling.
Yeah.
Number 4, navigating and resolving conflict.
Fun. One of my faves.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I think that this is something that a large part of the population across the world, whole cultures even, avoid altogether. Like there are literally billions of people who have been acculturated to help other people save face at all costs. Very, very common in Asia. Very, very common in Scandinavia. A lot of Europe. Conflict is something that's really scary for a lot of people, which I understand because I've been afraid of it too. But I think that there's a difference between malicious, unconscious, compulsive conflict, reactive conflict, and a conscious, benevolent conflict. I think that people have the word conflict right next to violence or fight.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's not what conflict means to me.
What does conflict
mean? If we take the word conflict and we extrapolate conflicting viewpoints, we start to understand, okay, that doesn't necessarily mean violence or a fight. It doesn't mean blood and death. It means that two people see things that oppose each other, And associated with that are connotations of different emotions, anger, rage, sadness. There's a lot that goes on, but it doesn't have to be. Conflicting viewpoints. Okay. So I was recently in Arkansas, and there's this thing going around that some of you might have seen where there's a dress that to you looks like it's either blue and black or white and gold. People who see white and gold are blind, but that's neither here nor there. We see two different things of the same thing. It's a conflicting viewpoint. No, it's not. It's white and gold. Well, actually, it's black and blue. What are you talking about, right? It's an oversimplification. But if you think about conflict as conflicting viewpoints, all you have to do to ask yourself whether or not conscious conflict can be valuable is ask yourself, have you ever changed your mind and things got better?
Yes.
Have you ever changed your mind and things got better? That's the beauty and the fruit of conflict. It's amazing. It's actually the best thing ever. If you decide that you want to, are interested in, and are ready to have your mind changed, evaluate it as much as you want. The endless potential for you, man. Endless potential. If you decided that you're not, what are you even doing here? What are you doing? Go create a little town somewhere where everything goes exactly as it's always gone and you want it to go forever. And good luck finding the freakazoids that would want to join that.
Right. So you need to start this by addressing and reframing the challenge. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Like what's well, it starts by you. No, before you even tell a client how to do it, it starts by you adopting the belief that we just shared.
Sure.
That on the other side of conflict and changing your mind, life can be better for you and the other person. You have to decide that that's true first and foremost. From there, you can start to better lead conversations with clients, because now you can bring conflict as the gift and the opportunity that it is. You can bring it in a way that's benevolent.
I had a scenario yesterday in a consultation different consultation that I didn't feel great about, and I was ruminating on it a little bit. We made an exception to the process for this individual, and ultimately it was the right decision to make. But I was sitting there and I was really thinking about it, and it was one of those things that would have kept me up at night if I didn't resolve it, because even in my workout, it just would not leave my brain.
Oh, that's what you were thinking about.
Yeah. The whole, it was consuming for me. Yeah. You noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
And I put this into ChatGPT.
Yeah, you did.
And I'm like, hey, I'm ruminating on this. Provide me with a different perspective. And it was like, look, you actually did a better job of holding your boundaries, because you identified that there was a gap in the process and you made an exception that was the best for you and for the client to be able to get this thing done. So it's actually a strength that you did that. And I'm reading through this and I'm having it read it to me, and I'm like, holy shit. First, this thing is going to revolutionize the world.
Yeah, it is.
And second, I'm like, I'm good. It was like, do you want some journal prompts to work through this? And I was like, actually,
yeah, I'm
good. That's all I needed.
Good work. Go take a break.
Yeah. See you later.
Right. I learned recently that the servers for ChatGPT use an insane amount of fresh water to cool things down. And I was really torn there, because I'm very, very environmentally conscious and very energy conscious, especially around natural resources. And I was like, but it's so good though. But it's so good though. Dude, I don't even use Google anymore. I'm just like, what kind of bird is this? I use it for everything, and it's just the best. It's rough. So I'm taking shorter showers now to offset that.
Great.
Which were already about 45 seconds long. So I'm really
once a week,
really pinching pennies here with my resource conservation. Anyway, off the rails here. Conscious conflict.
Supporting through self-doubt. That's the second example that you had here in navigating and resolving conflict.
Yeah. So an example of this might be someone who is describing, like, I'm feeling really discouraged because of what feels like this backslide here. An example of this would be, I took a person over to a whiteboard last week when they were in this really low. We were at session 9 of 12, the first 12 that we had ever done. And this person is like totally crawling out of the sand, a really shitty sandbox that they were in for some time. and they've made a ton of progress in 9 sessions, really a ton. And they're feeling this really big pit of despair around what they were experiencing today. And I walked over to a whiteboard and I drew an upward trending like stock market line. And I circled all the low points in one color and I circled all the high points in another color. And I pointed to one of the low points and I was like, you're here right now. What does this mean for you? And she was just like, oh. And starting to better frame in a bigger picture what this low point means in this upward trend. And it started by saying, well, first of all, would we agree that you're a little bit further along this trajectory than you were when you started 9 sessions ago? And she's like, absolutely. I was like, okay, well, you're here in this trend. And what we need to know is not, do you never feel this again? But we need to know, are your lows getting better? And if your lows are here in 3 months, it would actually be higher than your greatest high was for the last 3 years. She was like, I get it. That's an example of what I might mean by helping them reframe something like that.
Love that. Helping clients process the frustration. That was an example of how you could do that as well.
I would agree. I don't know that there's much more to say on that other than giving people something that they can sink their teeth into. If there's, and this goes back to what's in their control. This might be helping them better understand, look, your frustration isn't something that I'm going to try to sweep away right now. I've been frustrated too, and they've motivated some really important things. Frustration typically happens in between the learning process of where you have been and where you're trying to go. You don't get there without frustration. It means that you're not there yet, right? So I get it. I'm not trying to chase it away. But I do want you to at least feel assured that you're doing the right thing. I'm okay with you being frustrated today, but I do want you to feel that you're frustrated on the path to something that is the right thing for you. Are you there, or are you frustrated and not sure it's working? No, I know it's the right thing. I'm just having a bad day about it. Okay. I'm okay with that. I've had bad days too.
Yeah. The thought that came to me is frustration exists in the gap between learning and achievement.
100%. I think I saw that graph too. Squiggly line.
I don't know. Probably.
Well, I saw a video of a teacher that did a really good job with her students, where she went on a big chalkboard and she drew a point. She was like, here's where you're at right now. And then she drew another point, maybe 10 feet away on the chalkboard. And she was like, this is all of the knowledge and the skill that you guys want. It's right here. And then she took the chalk and she started at the first point, and she just drew like crazy swirls in a million different directions that eventually circled in this insane roller coaster and ended up at point B with all the knowledge and skill they want. And she was like, look, every time you're frustrated, it's because you are working to understand something that your body and your brain don't understand yet. And it's happening in a process. And anytime you're frustrated, I want you to remember that you can pick any point along this big squiggly ball of whatever, and it means that every time you're frustrated, you're there, which means that every time you're frustrated, you're getting closer to what you actually want.
Love that.
Yeah, it changed my perspective on frustration. It really changed the way I feel about my frustration, because in my frustration with how I perceive that I'm doing compared to where I want to be really costs me a lot of energy. So seeing that really helped me understand, like, all right, so I can just kind of trust that I'm doing the right thing here. I'm not frustrated about staying in the same place.
Yeah. Fifth and final, adapting communication styles. So we can talk about adjusting tone.
Yeah.
Being the example here, the first example here.
Yeah. So I think that there are a couple different reasons that you would adjust your conversation, your conversation style in the first place, your communication style in the first place. The first would be that there's just a different kind of person who responds to a different kind of thing. Some people are faster, some people are slower, some people like to be spoken to really directly, some people need some buttering up and some massaging and some suggestion. In addition to that, there's just the kind of day the person's having, the context of their life, and that might call for a different kind of tone. If someone's in a place of very, very low energy, you speaking and responding in a place of very, very high energy is actually going to rupture. It's going to create rupture. If someone's really, really depressed and down right now, you don't come through with Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. That's not going to do it. So there are different reasons that you would change your tone in the first place, right? If someone is in a position where you understand that someone's really, really sensitive, They're sensitive in general. They're sensitive to the situation right now. It should be met with sensitivity. And I think that if I told anyone, hey, I'm going to show you my sensitive tone. Yeah, totally. Let's do it. You're crushing it right now. Everyone would be like, you're a psychopath. You literally, that doesn't, no. Everyone knows what sensitive feels like. And it's the way that you would talk to a hurt little kid. And I think that if you see everyone as a hurt little kid when they're hurt, who just happens to be in an older body, it'll actually do you well. And so to speak to someone sensitively in a way that feels sensitive, which is, look, I just want to let you know that I'm really sensitive to how you're feeling right now. That's what you're going through isn't easy, and I'm not going to, for a second, pretend that it is. I think that speaks volumes. And I think that that's what is going to allow someone to move or be at a different speed eventually in the conversation if you start there. But starting not where they are, they're just going to dig their heels in and say, this person can't relate to me. I need to find someone else to talk to about this.
The wrong way to do that, like you were describing, feels like you're trying to be a hero. Like you're trying to show up, white knight them.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to save this. I'm going to make you feel better. It's not the thing.
Well, also, cheerleaders have a job. And that's their trick. That's fine. It's not disparaging. I know people who are serious in cheer. It's a hell of it's a narrow and deep skill set. And it's to do this, and it's to create this kind of energy in a situation like this. That's the job of a cheerleader. Sometimes that's perfectly appropriate, but not in this case.
Yeah. Providing structure. What does that mean?
So to me, providing structure is giving someone something that they can actually start referencing as how I can actually take the next step forward. What do I actually, this is the more tactical of what do I actually need to do? What are the boundaries here? What are the rules of how I can move forward next? So for an example of that, this can be the thing I was talking about if someone is overwhelmed and I need to literally make a checklist. This could be structure. Okay, the contractors are going to be in your house for another, 7 to 10 days? Yeah, that's what they say. It could be 2 weeks. Okay, let's assume it's going to be 2 weeks. We can't have another 6 weeks of you feeling the way that you have the last 6 weeks they've been here, right? Right. Okay, so we need to do things a little bit differently, right? What are the two things you can think of? One, with respect to the stressor of them being in the house. Two, with respect to making sure you have a little bit better control over what you're eating every day. What is one thing for each of those, since we know those are going to make the most change, that you can see yourself doing even once on a daily basis? Let's just start with them being in the house and you not being there the whole day that they're working. What's the one place that you know you can go for at least 15 to 20 minutes just to be away from it? We're going to pick a place together. We're going to establish, can you see yourself doing that every day? What might get in the way of this plan? Any reason that you don't see yourself doing it? Great. So we're going to do that. I'm going to check in each day to see if you've done it. Reasonable? Yes. You can even text me when you're there. Send me a photo of the place that you're at. If you stay longer than 15 minutes, that's okay. If you're 15 minutes, you can't be there anymore and you decide to go back to your house, that's okay too. You're going to spend 15 minutes away from that stressor. Reasonable? Reasonable. Second, with respect to your food, you've been ordering out 3 meals a day so far. What do you see as the smallest win that would leave you feeling better about how food is going? Cooking 1 meal. Okay. I mean, that's huge. What time do contractors get there? Sometimes as early as 8. What time do they leave? Sometimes as late as 6. So do you see yourself cooking a meal before or after they're gone and then sitting down to eat it? Or are you thinking more you cook a meal ahead of time that you can just have, whether you're eating it there or eating it at your second place? I'm just giving them options. I can see myself cooking dinner if they're out by 6. Okay. Is it likely that they're out by 6 every day? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Is it likely that you cook dinner every day? I can imagine myself being very tempted not to. If you cooked 3 dinners this week instead of 0, would that be a reasonable step? This is an example of structure.
You're creating, all of those questions allow you to create that minimum barrier for success.
That's right.
Rather than being like, okay, so they're out by 6. Let's do that every day. You feel good about that? Yep. All right, let's move on.
That's right.
Offering an empowering offering empowerment and reassurance.
Yeah, I think this goes back to a couple of things we touched on, but to me, this is really about making sure they are clear on two things and that they need to sell me on it. One, what are they capable of and confident about? Any part of this process. What are they capable of and confident about? The second one is, are they or are they not certain that they're on the right path? If they can start to claim more of what gives them the, yeah, I got this, that's an easy day energy, they're going to move forward with less friction. It's similar to, I've been learning a lot about how to help my dog when he gets reactive to other dogs that threaten him when we're out for a walk. And he starts to ruffle up and he gets growly when other dogs intimidate him. And the way that I've been learning how to do that, this is a shout out to Method Canine, by the way, is keep them moving. A lot of people tell their dogs to sit, and it actually builds up the whole thing to the dog, and it makes it a bigger deal. So we have to keep them moving. So the same thing with a client. When a client's in a situation like this, what would allow them to just keep it moving? And that's, well, what gives them I got this energy? What's something that they're confident about? What's something they can focus on just doing that they know is easy for them? That'll keep them moving. The second is, are they actually certain that they're on the right path? And a coach might avoid this because they don't want a hole in their plan to be revealed, because then a client, God forbid, might question their process and want to fire them. No, I always want to ask, are you still sure that we're doing the right things? If not, I'm going to adjust something. I just need to make sure that this feels like we're making progress here. That's it. Those two things I think will offer empowerment and reassurance.
I love that last example that you provided, because it's proactive versus reactive.
Yeah.
It gets you to the point where you guys are having the conversation about how they perceive their progress and the plan that they're on, versus getting to 12 sessions, 24 sessions, whatever the number is, and then being like, you know what? Actually, either my goals have changed, I don't think this is working for me in the way that I want, so I'm going to try something else, do something else.
That's it.
This was helpful for me, living in more of that operating side, that SOP and process side.
I'm glad.
Is there any closing thoughts on this?
I should do more of this.
What do you mean?
We should codify some more of this stuff. I realize that a lot of this I'm doing unconsciously. And we should figure out how we can make more of it clear and apparent.
SOPs, baby.
Yeah, not my job. I could do it. It'll just cost me a lot of energy.
Dude, ChatGPT.
Yeah. No, I've made SOPs before. I'll do it. I'll sop this thing up.
If you've made it this far, we're assuming it's because you found value in this conversation. So the only ask that we have, share it with somebody who needs to hear this conversation, subscribe to the podcast. When you do that, it allows us to keep doing this thing. It allows us to have better conversations, improve everything that we do related to this podcast.
Yeah, if you guys like this, I'm going to be straight up. If no one listens to this, we're going to stop doing it.
Yeah.
There's no reason to keep doing this if this isn't helpful. So it's a huge favor that'll allow us to make sure that we're not putting ads here, and you guys are only hearing what you want to hear, and that it's getting better. Thanks, Cody.
Thank you, Larry.
Yep.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Active Life podcast. If you did, please head to wherever you listen and leave us that 5-star rating. It really does go a long way. 5 stars goes a long way. Please leave them. If you're interested in working with us as a coach, remember, we help coaches from around the world build fulfilling careers, working with clients they're inspired to help so they never have to worry about being able to pay your bills again. No one's ever going to ask you if you're going to get a real job when you work with Active Life. All you have to do, head into the show notes, click the link that you find there, download our curriculum. That will give you a feel for what it is going to take for you to be successful. A team member of ours will reach out to you to find out if it's a fit for us to work together. Till the next show, turn pro.